Hey everyone, and welcome to a new video. This time I'm going to be talking about how to build or how I would build a warrior character in Ironsworn. Specifically, I'm going for a character that's kind of experienced in battle, okay? And you can use that to build the background of your character as well using the assets I'm going to pick. The first one is going to be veteran. I think this is kind of like the heart of this build. You could make it work with other combat talents like other weapons, but for the character I want to show, I think veteran is key. Okay, so the thing I like about the veteran asset is that it allows you to manage or have a better grip on how you burn and get momentum while you're playing. The core aspect of it is that if you can envision how your past experiences as a warrior help you in the move you're making, which I think is pretty easy if you're a veteran soldier or something like that. You can get a +1 momentum after you reset when you burn the momentum, and also, and perhaps the most critical one, is that you get a +1 on the next move that you make. That in itself is very powerful. And also, once per fight, you can take the initiative when you burn momentum to move from a miss to a weak hit. And I think that's very useful because when you clash, let me find the clash move. When you clash, you only regain the initiative on a strong hit, but not on a weak hit. However, if you use this asset, you can burn momentum. So perhaps you don't have as much momentum as you need to turn it into a strong hit, but even turning it into a weak hit and a weak hit lets you gain the initiative in combat, which I believe gives you more options to finish the combat faster and survive. Okay, and then I want to talk about how this first ability complements or is complemented by the other assets. Okay, for example, with Sunderer, you have the first by itself, it helps you do more harm because you can expend 1 momentum to inflict +1 harm on a hit. And when it says on a hit, it means weak or strong hit. So that in itself is very useful. But then if you mix this with the first ability in the veteran asset, like where when you burn momentum, then you get a +1 on the next move, which could be a strike or even a clash using the Sunderer asset. Now you're getting +1 on this move that you are going to get +1 harm, do more harm to the enemy. But you also get +1 momentum on the when you burn with the veteran move, so you will always have that 1 momentum you need to burn to get the plus harm on the Sunderer asset, on the first ability. So that in itself I think complements very well. Then on these two assets, you have the second ability. For example, in veteran, the second ability, when you swear an iron vow to someone who fought besides you at some point in your adventure or even in the past or the background of your character, you add a +1, a +2 to the move. Also with fortune and bond, but I think especially powerful when you swear an iron vow. You can add a +2, and then you take a +2 momentum on a hit, even a weak hit. So what that means is that when you're just setting out to do a new adventure or quest or vow, you have a very strong possibility of starting out with a +2 momentum. So that is very useful. And also I believe, right, if you get a strong hit, when you swear that iron vow, you also take 2 momentum. So if you use this ability when you swear the vow, you can start your vow with 4 momentum, your momentum tracker. That in itself is very useful. Then the final ability, it says that when you resupply by looting a dead on the field of battle, you add +1 and take +1 on a hit, a +1 momentum on a hit. So after you defeat your opponents, you can gain more momentum. I think that's the whole theme of the veteran is getting more momentum and managing that momentum. So after you finish the fight, where you probably spent a lot of momentum, you can get 1 momentum by doing a resupply move, and you get a +1 to that move. So that in itself is very useful. And finally, let's talk about Shield Bearer. I think that Shield Bearer really complements this build because it gives you options when you're down, when you don't have the initiative or when you don't have momentum to burn and things like that. You still have options, tactical options on how to survive. The first one is when you face danger, using the shield, you add +1. Face danger is a move that by itself it usually gives you momentum. Yeah, it gives you momentum, and it kind of works to get yourself in a position to exploit a weakness or something in the enemy. And then when you clash, we take +1 momentum on a strong hit. That again allows us to set up the character or the combat for that next move. In this case, it could be perhaps setting up to do a strike with our Thunder asset that needs that 1 momentum to inflict +1 harm. And then on the second ability, this one allows you to gives you advantages when you endure stress. So when you are facing off a fearsome foe, you can add +1 to that move, and you take +1 momentum on a hit. And the way I read these abilities and the rules in Ironsworn is, if you read this here, if you endure stress as you face off against a fearsome foe, is that you, instead of taking harm, you can envision how your character instead endures stress, right? He's fighting, he got a weak hit or a miss, but instead of taking harm that could take you out of the battle, you can endure stress, and you also get an advantage while you endure that stress. And finally, the third ability, which I think is the most powerful of all the 3 assets, is that you can sacrifice your shield to ignore damage when you're enduring harm. That in itself is very powerful and can save your character when you are about to die or when the odds are really stacked against you. It also says that once per fight, you also take initiative when you sacrifice your shield to avoid harm. So even when you take a miss on a clash move, for example, you would still regain the initiative if you sacrifice your shield. Now, the way I read this, obviously, if you sacrifice your shield, you won't be able to use it in that battle. Afterwards, you can maybe do a resupply or move or something like that to find a new shield, or when you come back to a settlement or something like that, you can get a new shield. That, as usual in Ironsworn, is all about the narrative, so really is whatever makes sense to you, but the key thing here is that you can only do it once per fight. But again, it can really save you in that fight. Now with that, usually the next step after selecting your assets, I usually pick the asset first because it gives me an idea of the kind of character that I'm building, and I can use that to create a background for this character. So usually you would pick a name, okay, and to do that we can use the oracles from Ironsworn. For example, we can roll on the character name Malik. Malik could be a good name. Let's say we want to see the whole table. I usually just look at the whole table and pick one. For example, this Caldas. I think that sounds cool, Caldas. So let's rename our character to Caldas. And for the stats, I went with Iron because our character is a fighter and he fights with an axe. So it does make sense that Iron will be his top stat. Then +2 hard, because I think that anyone who faces his enemy with an axe and a shield, you know, in melee, he has to be brave, and that's kind of how I see Hart. He's a brave character. And then +2 wits. I think that goes well with the veteran asset, because no one gets to be a veteran fighting in close combat without being not necessarily smart, but at least being observant, having common sense, and all that I think it is represented with wits in Ironsworn, just as much as intelligence could be represented. And then for the +1, I chose Edge, because this character, he doesn't use a bow, and he's not particularly fast or agile. And then Shadow, because I would say that he simply is not good with subtleties, and he doesn't like hiding or doing anything like that. He takes his enemies head on. Alright, and then for the vow, there are many ways you can do that. You could use the tables, or let's say that I usually start with a settlement. That's the way I like to start my games. So let's create a new settlement. Okay, and here we see marauding ogres. That in itself could be a good start for our vow. Okay, and we can also take a look at the leader of the settlement. Okay, the current task: rescue a kidnapped noble from a ruthless captor. That could also be a good first vow, or a good start for the character. Okay, So I think probably defend South Hollow, something like that from the ogres, or I think marauding ogres could be even a background bow for this character. So let's say defend or vanquish the ogres, which could become all kinds of it could have all kind of complications. Why are these ogres here? Perhaps they're not necessarily bad or evil. Why did they come to this region? Perhaps they're fleeing for something, running from something, and that's the kind of thing that you discover as you play with this game. For example, we could roll on the oracle table and for in the core oracles action thing, and that in itself could give you examples on how to approach this. So, for example, here we got fear. Maybe the ogres are afraid or are running because they fear some kind of challenge, and that could keep you moving in your adventure. But that's kind of out of the scope of this video. I just wanted to talk about a character build or a character I would like to play. Maybe I will record a video playing with Caldas here. I really like that idea of a veteran soldier, a veteran warrior fighting or defending a village against these ogres. Oh, and finally, for equipment, I know equipment isn't really something that you need to do in Ironsworn, but I find it helps to envision your character. So our character here he uses a simple axe, hand axe of some sort like this, and for the shield, this is Ironsworn, so it's not going to be a fancy metal shield or something like that. Just something like this, a leather bound shield. And for armor, I'm going to say that he's wearing some sort of leather tunic or something like that, something like this. Yes, I think it's something you would see in an Ironsworn character. Alright, and with this would be enough, at least for me, to start playing and go out on an adventure, making moves and stuff like that. So I'm going to leave this video here, and thank you for watching. If you like this kind of stuff, please subscribe to the channel, and see you on the next one.